All right, guys. Yo, welcome back to the Sprout University podcast. We got an interesting one today, and this is deviating a little bit from the addiction stuff. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because part of getting sober is living that full, healthy life. And part of living a healthy life is learning how to, manage finances, how to, create income for yourself. And so today we're going to be talking about some business mistakes that we have all learned along this journey, and essentially talk about them so you don't have to make them. Same with like my recovery coaching. Like I tell you the mistakes I made so you don't have to, and just kind of speed line the process. So we have an awesome panel today. I'm going to introduce you guys one by one. First off is Peter from Warsaw. What's up, brother?
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then welcome back to Derek.
What's up?
Yep. Mr. Social Bamboo himself. And then the most recent member of the tribe, Bentley. Welcome back to the channel, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So as always, we're just going to dive right in and open it up. So I think first we'll go around and kind of tell everyone what your business is and how you got into it, a little backstory on it. So Peter, if you want to start us off, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'm a little bit different than Bentley and Derek. So currently I work for a startup, and I was there since the very early times with the startup started, and I've been watching it build over the last 6 or 7 years or so. And so I have a sort of different perspective from the tech world and the startup world, and the mistakes that could potentially come with that. And then I'm also developing a product myself, but that's still in early stages. But that should be launching pretty soon. So
cool. What's the product? Or is it secret? Is it secret?
We'll keep it secret for now.
Cool. Man of mystery. Nice. And Derek, to you, my friend.
I've got a new product too, still keeping it mostly secret. I've got too many aspiring entrepreneurs following me that I don't want to give it away, before it's really gotten full traction. I've invented a product in the past. It didn't turn out well, but it was a great learning lesson. I've done a podcast for the last 5 years now. It's called Social Media Entrepreneurs, and it focuses on how to become a full-time entrepreneur and leave your day job and just, go after your dreams and work for yourself. So yeah, I've had my hand in a lot of things. I've done consulting courses, and I'm switching to an agency focus right now. And then, just a couple e-commerce companies.
Very cool. And Bentley, the trucking man.
Yes. So my background is more of a traditional service type business. I had a trucking company for pretty much 30 years. And I was very specialized logistics, moved the world's biggest equipment. And through the course of doing that, of course, it was naturally lots of problems, which required the assistance and service and supplies of countless businesses. And in the course of running that, I walked through the doors of well over 10,000 businesses in my life. So since I have transitioned out of trucking, I'm now doing business consulting. And a big part of that is also with marketing, just business positioning, branding, streamlining, so businesses can scale and grow based on the knowledge of all of the businesses I've seen, what works and what doesn't. And these guys just made an excellent example of a mistake to avoid, which is giving away your product or your idea before you actually have it fully baked and on the market. So kudos to both of you guys for doing that.
Cool. Well, I'm going to share all my products that I do not have ready yet. First one, no, I'm just kidding. So I do addiction recovery coaching, as you guys know, and starting doing some men's developing coaching as well. So basically, if you're a guy out there and you want to, level up your life, we have a lot of options for you there. And we all are also a part of the Men of Now community, which we've talked about before on this channel, and except for Derek yet. But it's a place where you can come, you can meet like-minded guys like Peter, like Bentley, who are all focused on leveling up and becoming better versions of themselves. A lot of the people you've seen on this channel are part of that group as well. So you'll get to connect with them. And also, if you have any things that you want to push out into the world, we're happy to support you on that. So if you are interested, you can sign up at menofnow.us. And, or, you know, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me and ask any questions. Peter and Bentley as well. We'll throw your Instagrams down there at some point as well. So, yeah, really, I'm excited for this one because I find that no matter how hard I work, I'm always making mistakes here or there. And it's just always a humbling reminder, because if I get too high on the, you know, don't get too high. I think that's my first lesson I've learned. Don't get too high on the highs, because there's always going to be a low. And every time that low hits, you know, it gets less and less low, because I'm aware that it's not always going to be good forever. But for a long time, if I had a low, it would really just be debilitating. And I would question everything about my life and, you know, where I've come from, all my past and stuff. And I was just kind of realizing, you know, like, no matter how hard I try, right, there's going to be mistakes. So I guess opening up to you guys, like, how do you balance, you know, the successes in business versus the not so good parts?
For sure. So with the startup that I currently work for, right, we've had long history of that, right, where there were very high highs and very low lows. And it's very easy to get discouraged at the time, right, because it feels really, really bad, right? It feels like you're not moving, you're not making progress. However, if you take a look at the history of it over a long period of time, what you actually start to realize is that those low points are sort of these inflection points where better things are about to happen down the line. You just don't know what those are yet, right? And oftentimes what happens is the new things that come in, the doors that open after that, are much, much greater than where you were previously, right? And I think always keeping that into perspective, right? Having the mentality that when you're at sort of that low, that it's just an opportunity to learn and grow, and that eventually down the line something better will come. I think it's a really good mindset and something that's never really failed us, and just keeping grounded in that, I think, really helps.
I'll add to it. So with the highs, I mean, you don't want to just be like, okay, this isn't going to last. I shouldn't even enjoy this. I should just be preparing for the bad. You should enjoy the highs, because those are great. The thing that comes with it, though, that is dangerous is the complacency. So maybe you start having all these great results, and then you stop doing the actions that let you get those results. And then all of a sudden you run out of momentum. And it's because a lot of times salesmen, they say they either eat steak or beans for dinner. It's because the weeks that they made steak, they're like, cool, I'm going to eat the steak. I made all these sales. And they just like, you chill out. The success makes you chill out. And that's why a lot of people struggle to get to like a 7 or 8 figure business, is because as soon as they start making 6 figures, they're like, I'm cool with this. And that's fine. But that's why you can't get to those next levels, is you have to conquer that complacency. So you have to have a goal that is much bigger, or like an action focused goal where no matter how good sales are going, you still put in this amount of daily action. The other thing that comes with the wins, you can take, for example, Blockbuster. They should have been the ones to invent Netflix. Like, they got so complacent. They're like, we don't have to do anything. Everyone loves coming in. They got their slumber parties. They come in, they get their movies. Like, we're killing it. Like, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And that could have been with like Taxi Fleet should have invented Uber, right? Like, these companies that get complacent with being number one, that like don't see what could possibly take them over. And, you know, that's what happens with getting too comfortable in the wins, but not to say that you shouldn't enjoy them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had a lot of experience dealing with large enterprise businesses throughout my business and my career. And that is typically one of the falling downs, so to speak, of large enterprise, is they become behemoths like government. They're slow to react. They're slow to make decisions. And a new upstart, aka Blockbuster, going under, and Netflix taking over, an upstart comes that is a game changer. They're small, they're quick, they're easy to make decisions, and they'll pivot quickly and go down those paths and take advantage of them. So as a large company, you know, definitely celebrate your highs and enjoy them, because that's the entire point of business. If you're not going to enjoy the highs, there's really no point in doing it, because there will be lows that come with it. That's why they call them highs. You can't have a high without a low. The path to success is never linear. It's always like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, and there's corrections. Where you get wiped out and your head taken off is if you haven't managed those highs created savings, developed cash flows, or decreased debt to be able to ride those out and have financing in place, lines of credit or something like that, in order to get you through those. And then when you're with the highs, when you're on your lows, that's where you learn how you can actually operate lean. So when you're on your highs, don't just spend frivolously. Remember, those lean times are going to come. So operate your high while managing your expenses on a low, and that will make that high even higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just to add to what Derek said, I completely agree. One of the things that we do at the company that I work for is we're always trying to reinvent ourselves, right? So we look at what could the market potentially look like, and how can we be the first to actually do that, right? So that's always incorporating the newest technologies, figuring out how we can continually provide value. It's sort of the same concept as, Blockbuster should have invented Netflix, right? Because they're the ones that sort of had the understanding of the movie industry, right? And they should have seen and been able to predict what the future was going to look like and how everything was going to be more global and on the internet. And they should have been the ones that invented Netflix, right? And I think that that's just really good to do, especially as a technology company, right? Continually improving, continually looking at how you can basically make yourself irrelevant, or not irrelevant, but basically continually make like that better product, right? And that's a mindset that's never going to fail you.
Yeah, I like what you're saying too, Bentley, about making sure you have finances in place. So if someone does come and take you over, because let's be real, there's always somebody chasing and hungrier than you are, and so it's not inevitable, but it's kind of inevitable. So I really like what you said, like have a buffer in place. Yes. Anyone else says, who's Blockbuster? Dude, classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and a good reason to have the buffer in place is the new upstart that has literally thrown everything in the kitchen sink that they have at their upstart. They are the proverbial person with nothing to lose. Who's the most dangerous opponent in the world? The person with nothing to lose, because you can't defeat them. They can literally put everything into it and it doesn't matter. And when you have things to lose, you have at a certain point, you're going to get big enough. You're going to have employees, you're going to have suppliers, you're going to have creditors, you're going to have things that you need to service. So you have a lot to lose and you need to be somewhat cautious. And when you're competing with somebody who has nothing to lose, they have an edge on you. So you have to be very careful to manage all that stuff that you can be used against you to lose, to make sure that you have what you need to deal with that when it comes along, because it will come at some point or another. It will come.
It will. I used to make music and produce dance music, and my dream was to be a DJ. And what I found is whenever I would get a song that was good enough to be like in the market, a new DJ would come and just have this brand new sound, and then no one would care about the old sound. And I kept chasing that. I was like, dude, I'm almost there. And then boom, another wave came through. So I don't do music anymore for that purpose. But yeah, it's definitely, there's always someone hungry or always somebody that wants it. And I'm curious, Derek, have you had any situations in your life and business career where someone has overcame, something you were working on?
It's more the offers that I've come out with. If I came out with them a couple of years earlier, would have worked so much better. Like when I started selling courses through webinars, I was like, all right, watch my 1 hour free training. It was like the end of the game. Like I came in super late. People had already sat through countless webinars, bought $1,000 course that they never opened. And here I am trying to say, watch my free training. And it was just done with. Like if I did that strategy a year earlier, it would have worked 10 times better. And then it took me refining that. I was like, okay, no, the new thing is VSLs. I'm going to do a 20-minute webinar. Screw these hour webinars. The new thing's the 20-minute webinar. And then that takes me a couple months and I come out with that. And then that doesn't work. And then I'm like, no, it's done with you consulting, where you get the course and you get the group calls is the new thing. Like, and then that finally worked. So, but now it doesn't. Now it's kind of the tail end of people being hungry to get into that kind of coaching program. Mm-hmm. And yeah, with the inventions too, like as soon as I saw an opening, I was like, act right now. And speed really is the name of the game, because my podcast, how it started was I was driving around one day searching for an Instagram podcast and I couldn't really find one that they were consistent. So 3 hours later, I came out with a podcast called Instagram Marketing Secrets. And I just came out with like 3 episodes, like how to do hashtags, how to do your bio. And within a week, I was the #1 search on podcast apps if you typed in Instagram. And then I started just getting thousands of listeners. And if I came to that like 3 months later, the opportunity would have been significantly less. So speed is so much the name of the game, which is another reason why you can't get complacent. And yeah, an idea that's great one year could be just an average idea the next year.
Dude.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think timing is everything, but I also think it depends on the sort of industry that you're in. For things like podcasting, it's definitely important to sort of be #1 because people have like really short attention spans, right? And they're going to hop between different products, right? For things like technology companies, what can happen is you can have a great idea for a company and a great idea for a product, but the market may not be ready for it just yet, right? And what happens is you keep trying to push something out that the market just doesn't want, right? And it seems like you're continually fighting this battle to push something out. But when you sort of time things right, where the market is actually primed for that, it's a completely different experience, right? It feels like you're just riding a wave, and it's easy to get attraction for that, right? So like if you're building those types of products, being able to understand the timing of things and what drives the market and what gets people interested in the product, and figuring out how to launch it so that the timing is right, I think is really, really important.
And how do you do that then, Peter? Like, because I'm totally with you. Like, it's all about timing. Like, how do you get ahead of the curve then?
So it's a little bit of a complicated question, because a lot of it I think also just comes down to intuition, right? And also you need to have a certain level of understanding of the market that you want to build the product for in the first place, right? And you can start by basically just saying like, hey, this is the industry that I'm in. I want to build a product in here. I don't exactly know what that looks like yet, right? But let me look at the market. Let me see what are the pain points that users are having currently. Let me start doing some interviews. Let me see what is it exactly that people are struggling with. Or you can also start to sort of look at trends, right? So one example that I can give is if you start looking at communities right now, right? Communities are on the rise, like massively, right? Via platforms like School or even on Discord, right? And a lot of these communities are sort of being monetized, right? So right now, there's a sort of good product strategy where you start basically with video content to get people watching you and what you're doing, right? Then from there, you build a newsletter, right? And you get people to continually watch what you're doing. From there, you go to a open community, right? And then you go to a paid community, and then you sort of go to a product, right? And it seems as if this is sort of the strategy which increases trust the most, right? Because first, people can see like these short form content clips, right? And then once they're interested, they sign up for the newsletter. And as you keep going up that scale to public community, private community, and then product, the trust level of your overall product increases.
I think we lost Peter there for a moment.
Oh.
But you froze perfectly. Right at the end.
That overseas connection. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Them bowling people.
And scale.
Yeah, I like
Like
that.
that.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
finding the
there he
strategy. Oh, hey, welcome back.
Thank you.
Do
Yeah,
you want to finish your thought or?
yeah, just to wrap up, I think that over the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot more products and a lot more companies that are focused on seeing communities actually grow and scale and become like sort of massively profitable that way.
Sweet. Well, that's
So
reassuring.
that's basically just based on like trends, right? Seeing the like, right now communities are hot, right? And then looking at why is it exactly that they're hot right now, right? And it has to do around like user trust and how that affects your overall product, right? And then being able to find a way that you can monetize that as a product that you can then sell to people, right?
Absolutely. And, guys, speaking of communities, we do have the Men and Now community. So definitely hop in there if that is something you are looking for, to connect with like-minded men who are all focused on becoming better human beings, right? Not even this like whole alpha thing, just, good people that want to add value to the world. And so that's really what we're focused on. None of that stuff, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really like that. And I think it's important to, like you said, focus on what you can control, like not so much, oh my God, worrying about what could possibly take you over. And this is a mistake I've had, like what could go wrong, like focusing on what could go wrong instead of what I'm doing right, and then put more energy into what I'm doing right, and kind of accept that things are going to happen, right? Like AI is going to happen. AI is happening. I know a ton of people that were graphic designers that can't get work because, well, people can just use AI now. So and I'm sure they never could prepare for that. So it's just like, again, like make sure you're focusing on what you can control. Same with like recovery and stuff. Like you don't want to focus on the past too much. You don't want to focus on the future. You want to do what you can in this moment and trust that everything is going to kind of come together if you continue to put in the work. And I think, I want to go back to Bentley's point a little while ago. Great point, Peter, by the way. Definitely follow what works. And Bentley, you said the importance of having that finances in place in case shit goes to hell. So I'm guessing you've been in a situation where you haven't had your finances in place and stuff's gone to hell. So
yeah, you don't run through 30 years of business without making some mistakes along the way. If I was to write a book on the mistakes, it'd be an encyclopedia, and you guys are probably too young, but when I grew up, encyclopedias were this rack of a whole bunch of books on a shelf. It wasn't Google. You will run into issues with that. You'll make mistakes with that. One of the biggest things that I recommend to anybody who's new getting into the business is learn to understand cash flow. I unfortunately took way too long to learn exactly what that was and how it worked. When you understand cash flow and you know how to manage it, you can actually leverage cash flow in the form of financing and having a continual with managing your cash flow properly. You can also have your continual piece that comes off that goes into your reserve fund to get you through those rainy days, and it's going to rain. That's just a fact. Having systems in place to take care of that, because your reputation is a big thing with that. When it comes to finances and problems and cash flow, that is where your reputation, your cash flow management, knowing, so when you go sit down with a bank, you can tell them what comes in and what goes out. I've got $1.4 million a year comes through the door, and here's where it goes. Because at the end of the day, a business that makes 1.4 million, like I was a one-person business doing $1.4 million a year. I didn't put $1.4 million in my pocket. Literally $1.4 million flowed through my bank account, and I took a small piece of that. And that is the reality of it. Like everybody hears these numbers in business and thinks that they're astronomical, and they are. For example, one of my former clients was Caterpillar, $156 billion a year company. Well, they don't put $156 billion a year into savings. Like literally 150 billion of that goes through them in expenses. So being able to manage cash flow, because once you get into business, depending on the business that you're in, something with a low overhead, you won't have those kind of numbers. You could run a work from home, build website, marketing agency that does $120,000 a year. You've got $20,000 in your expenses. You put $100,000 in the bank. You could be like me, where you ran 1.4 million a year in revenue, and your fuel bill was $195,000. Right. So all of a sudden, that what is actually yours comes out, and being able to manage that, because when that amount of money starts to flow through your hands, it becomes very tempting to new Corvette. Going to buy a Lamborghini. And I've had times where I could literally write a check for a Lamborghini, but all of that money was earmarked to expenses, right? So being able to manage and avoid that kind of temptation, that is a big learning experience. Understanding what is actually yours and what is not, and do not touch what is not yours, because if you do that, you'll destroy that reputation. And then when times do get tough and you go sit down and say, look, I need a line of credit to carry me through this time, they're going to look at you and go, no, because you couldn't manage your money. If you couldn't manage your money when things were going well, now that things are going bad, you're definitely not going to be able to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, you know, experience, reputation, surrounding yourself with the right people, networking. A big thing in business is relationships. So if you're not very good at relationships, you're probably going to struggle in business. You have to be able to talk to people and communicate with them. And in all reality, you're going to communicate with your competitors. And sometimes your competitors are going to turn into some of your best friends. You're going to go for coffee with them every week, and they're going to discuss problems on their side, and you're going to have solutions that you found for that. They're going to tell you solutions to your problems that they've found, because at the end of the day, there's enough work for everybody. You know, nobody is really going to have it all, you know, unless you're Elon Musk or what's his name, who has Facebook. Like they want to own everything. But there is always going to be competition. So you're going to have people you can learn from, and you're going to have people you can be able to share information with. And learning how to share the information without giving away the farm, so that they will share information to help you save your farm. Because this is going to happen if you have a long-term business. Like I was in business for 3 decades, and I can't even count how many highs and lows there was in that.
I love both of those points. Touch on the money one. Yeah. Like I go to a program for debting, and I don't have any debt, thankfully. However, I have had a dysfunctional relationship with money. And one of the big mistakes that people in this program make is they spend future money. They say, oh, I have this much coming in, I can just go buy this because it's going to come in next month. Then it comes in next month, and what happens? So they're essentially debting with themselves, because then they spend the next month. And that was a big, I've done that so many times. And I've recently learned that lesson. Like, nah, man, like, dude, track your expenses, every single thing, just do it. And you know where everything's going, what's coming in. And so now it's just like, I have no temptation to buy anything that I can't afford. It's so freeing too. It's like,
welcome to Cash Flow 101.
well, you gotta start a course, man. It's just simple.
I just live by the rule. I'll always make more money later. No.
Yep.
And I'm going to make more next year. Just live by that principle. I'll make more next year.
Yep.
Just kidding.
If only it was like that, you know.
Yeah.
I owned my trucking business for a little over 27 years. Like I said, I worked for somebody else before that. Was kind of where I learned the ropes on it. So I actually did that business for 31 and a half years. But through that, I had 5 years where the previous year was higher revenue. That is an extremely good record. I can tell you right now, I know a lot of people who were nowhere close to that. So that was very diligent, very careful, and I still had down years. And sometimes those down years weren't down by like 1 or 2%. They were down by like 20%. And that is where your cash flow management, that's where your debt management, and that's where your reputation, your ability to solve those problems, walk into the bank. Things are down this year. I need to borrow $50,000 to get me through to the end of the year. And I'm not making the money, but they looked at the history and the cash flow records, and they gave me a line of credit for $50,000 and carried me through the year. It will happen.
And I'm guessing you never predicted that was going to happen.
Oh, good God, no. No, I mean, some stuff was unforeseen, right? 9/11, who saw somebody flying airplanes into towers and literally collapsing the economy? There were $100 billion projects that I was servicing that got shelved. And I had just bought a brand new $500,000 trailer to service that contract. And it got shelved. And now it's like, well, we got to find some other work. Quickly.
Is DoorDash hiring?
Didn't exist yet.
Yeah, right.
No such thing.
Oh, you should have started DoorDash, man.
Yeah, you should have started DoorDash, of course. Or Uber.
The problem is I wouldn't have fit through residential neighborhoods.
You just become like The Rock and make a gym in your trailer and start having people come in. Oh man. Now, what was the second point you made, Bentley? After
About business is about relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, relationships. And I think that's a great lesson is like, don't make the mistake of thinking that you can only learn from certain people.
Mhm.
Remember, especially your enemies, like you said, can be your greatest teachers, often because they reflect something in you that you don't like about yourself. Whenever I'm
Mhm.
triggered by
Mhm.
someone, it's like, well, it's because I do the same thing. And as much as I don't want to see it, like maybe I'm having a good day, it's like, well, what can I do to work on this so I don't get triggered by that? That's more a little on the psychological side, but
Mhm.
yeah, Peter and Derek, like,
Mhm.
how do you manage your relationships in your business, and what do
Yeah.
you learn?
So what I would actually say is that it's not only about business relationships per se, but I think it's also about your relationship with your customers, right?
Mhm.
And I say like the same thing that Bentley said, like business isn't about making money, it's about the relationships that you make, right? Like money is about making money, right? And what that means is that if you can have a good relationship with people, if you can have a good relationship with customers, the money will come, right? But if you have sort of this mindset that your customer base is just this bag of money that you can kind of pull from, you're going to always be able or always have like a subpar product, right? Because the products that actually win out in the market are the ones that are able to connect with the customers the most, right? And so part of business is obviously, what are the relationships that you can have with other people in business to further your business, but also the relationships that you can have with your own customer base, right? And oftentimes what can happen is that the first early adopters and the first customers, they'll end up being your most loyal customers. And they'll also be the ones that are continually like giving uh, feedback to you, right? And um, from my experience, what's happened multiple times is like when we had the mindset of focusing on the customer and the customer needs and solving that problem specifically, the customer would actually come back to us and say like, hey, like what you made is amazing, amazing product, but I think you're undervalued. Like we want you to charge us more, right? Which is sort of an insane concept to think about, right? But if you're always about sort of like the money and how much you can pull from the customers, you're always going to end up with sort of a subpar product and like pissed off customers that are just going to look for an alternative that is actually trying to solve their needs and not just trying to use them as like a money bag.
Yeah, you can have a great product, and if you have a bad relationship, they won't return and do business with you. So you do need both the great product and the great relationship. The relationship can also get you some pity sales, right? But it still isn't sustainable. So it's definitely important to have both. As far as how to do it, with my podcast and content that I put out online, I think people want to know that you can teach them something valuable first. They don't really care to know about your life and all of those things at first. But now that I just came out with like episode 374 of the podcast this morning, this one actually was a little bit more of me just opening up, like, here's what's going on in my life. I think a lot of people reach out to me when I do a phone call consultation and they're considering investing in my programs. I say, the reason why I booked with you is because you're not like the YouTubers that have 400K and I just can't relate to them at all because they're just in a totally different league, and you buy their coaching programs. You don't even coach with them. You coach with the person that they hired to go through their coaching program, has never even opened a business. So that's why I think it's also good to work with mid-level coaches that know what they're talking about, but aren't at the level yet where they're like, oh, better hire people to do the coaching job for me. You want to hire, like, work with the people that have delegated maybe like video editing, but not like the coaching itself. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I just really related to you. I had a call with someone the other day. So the reason I got in touch with Joel originally is help with the marijuana addiction. And I was talking about that on the podcast, and he called me and he told me like, I quit weed because you talked about on the podcast. So like things like this, I mean, that guy, he's bought something from me before, but he's followed me for a long time. And I've had people that have listened to nearly every podcast episode, which is really, really crazy that there's that many of them, and they have. But there's one guy that has bought everything I've ever come out with. And I've also done a lot of extra calls with him. Like one time we had like a group coaching call and he couldn't make it. So I just gave him a one-on-one call, and he's bought nearly everything I've ever come out with. And he could love my content, but if we didn't have a good relationship on these calls, he wouldn't keep coming back. So the relationships in business, apart from just learning general rapport skills, which I think the number one hack is just know about a lot of things, like have a yes mentality with life. Because if you meet up with someone that loves hockey, like know a little bit about it, right? Know a little bit about everything. And now you can build genuine rapport with everyone. You don't want to just, not really have much scope of life outside of your own hobbies. I really just kind of dive into every hobby for like a few months and I move on. Like now I can talk about it, and I'm really ADHD with the hobbies anyways. I just kind of like to mix it up, but I can really shoot the shit about most topics because I was in sales for a long time and got over 3,300 customers from just direct sales when I sold Cutco. And every person's a little bit different, but you just get really good at talking to them no matter what their thing is. Like I could do an appointment with an extreme Republican, the next one extreme Democrat, and they're both like, that guy's got his head on his shoulders. Like I can play it off. I can talk whatever language we need to. Not that I'm being fake, but I've just like, I understand their point. I understand everyone's opinion, and I can, get along with it. So like that is in rapport. And then in business, just go the extra mile, because why not? Like I think it's really crazy when you get like a waiter or waitress. Like I'm kind of demanding in this way, but like sometimes like my phone will be low on battery. Like, oh, I'll ask the waiter, like, hey, can you charge my phone? Is there a way? And when they're like, yeah, let me find out who's got a charger in the back and let me figure it out for you. Like I'm gonna tip you more, and then if you can't, I'm gonna tip you less. Like I don't get why they're like, no, like I'm all offended by you asking for this. Like go the extra mile as often as you can. Like why wouldn't you want to do that? Like that's the business that you're in. So like when someone misses a group coaching call, yeah, I'll do a private call with you. I'm not even gonna charge you for it. Like this is the opportunity that I have to earn you as that lifelong customer. So be looking for those opportunities to go the extra mile.
Yeah, that's a good point. And since we're on the subject of business mistakes, one thing in business is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up and you're going to misdeliver for a customer. It's going to happen. Accept it. But when it happens, accept it. Tell them you're sorry for it, apologize for it, and ask them, what can I do to make this right? You may never salvage that relationship, and you may not be able to retain them as a customer. Usually you will, because it's what is it, the stat they say? I think it's something like 7 times easier to keep a customer than it is to find a new customer. And as a client, it's, I think, 5 times easier to keep a supplier and have them fix the problem than it is to find a new supplier. So solving the problem is beneficial to both you and the customer. And understand that you're going to make mistakes. Build this into your pricing model and do everything you can to fix them and go above and beyond. 9 times out of 10, it's the things you do to solve the problem when you've made a mistake that will keep the customer and actually get you a review, a recommendation, or referral. Because everybody knows we all make mistakes. And when Peter tells me, hey, I was dealing with Derek and he had a mistake and he fixed it in this way, and this way, I now look at it going, okay, cool. Then if I do business with Derek, I know he's going to solve the mistake if he makes one. So that builds the trust factor up even more than if just Derek does a really good job every time I hire him. Okay, cool. When I know that if Derek makes a mistake, he's going to be good for it and he's going to fix it, I'm even more encouraged to do business with him.
100%. Like people are attracted to the flaws in people, which might sound a little weird. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, and I had a coaching call with Ricky yesterday, who also came through marijuana recovery coaching, and he's part of the Men and Now community. Awesome guy, guys. You should hit him up. If he really helps he holds space very well. Let's just say that. And he was talking, he's like, dude, the reason why I hired you for coaching is not because you were perfect and you had all this success. It's because you were a total fuck up. And so was I. It's like, and so when you can, like Bentley said, have that humility and say, hey, like I made this mistake. I'm here to correct it. I'm a human. I'm learning to, people are going to like you more, and they're just going to see that humanity and forget that it is a business and see like, oh, we're just people interacting here. And like you said, people might not accept that. And that's like something that's like learning that thick skin. That's something business has really taught me too. Like things are going to, you're going to come in sometimes with the best intentions and people are just going to say, fuck off. and that can hurt, especially if you're a guy that, a person that feels deeply or has that desire to have those deep connections. But it's business, man, and sometimes you just aren't going to have deep connections with people, and you have to focus on what you can focus on in terms of those relationships. So God, I love that, the importance of relationships. I'm curious, where have you guys possibly messed up a relationship where
I think everyone has a story here.
I'm human. I've messed up lots of them. I'm sure everybody else has too. It's just it's going to happen.
I think it comes down to their expectations weren't set correctly is usually what it is.
Okay.
So especially like as an ad agency, I'm running their ads. If I don't tell them, hey, it's going to take me a month to figure this out, the second month we should be profitable. And then I start running the ads and I say, oh yeah, cancel anytime. Even after the first month, you don't love it, you can cancel it. Right. Like those two scenarios, if I frame it in those ways, like the second one, they're thinking, oh, he's going to figure out the ads right away. Like for agencies that do organic Instagram content, that could take like 6 months before they gain traction. So if you don't set the expectation correctly, then that's where the disconnect is. Because I was thinking about when you said, what problems have you had with customers? And I was thinking back to them, and I'm like, they really were all maybe just overpromised a little bit on something to get a sale. So you want to make sure that you're never, I mean, sometimes you got to pull out the, 30-day money back guarantee that you don't normally do to get a sale or whatever. But, you got to really make sure expectations are set correctly. And you want to have enough business that you don't have to try to increase your warranty or do all these extra things to get a sale. You want to be able to just turn that customer away. It is really the best way you could handle those situations. But yeah, it's all about the expectations.
I love that. Yeah. How many times if you thought you were getting something and it wasn't, you're just like, well, screw this. It's like, yeah, it's the same being on the other end. Like, I know something, that I can start working on too is kind of be more realistic with my coaching and hey, you might, and this is if anyone's watching too, you're gonna, it takes about 30 days. It's gonna be the hardest part to quit weed, but it's gonna probably take a year or two to really find your joy, that pure just bliss for life. It's gonna take some time, and that it might even take longer depending on how much work you have to do. And I know in the past I've definitely kind of sold the dream maybe a little too early. Hey, you're gonna get sober and your life's just gonna be awesome. They're like, well, dude, I have all this trauma to deal with. I'm like, oh yeah. So yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that. Sorry guys. And but if you can get through coaching and stuff, you can find those avenues and find those ways of healing and stuff. Peter, how about you? Any relationships that went awry?
Yeah. So this was probably actually the biggest and the hardest lesson that I learned in business. And that was that back in the day when this was after I graduated college. And I started a startup with two friends from college, right? And at the time, I was a developer, so I was doing most of the work, and the product was based off of an idea that I had, right? And so there was a long period of time, probably close to a year and a half, where I was working 14 hours a day, just trying to build this product, and along with work and all that other stuff, right? And for a bunch of reasons, which this is an entire call in itself, but the business relationship fell apart, right? But one of the reasons that and there were problems along the way, but it didn't end until later, right? And one of the reasons for that was because when you're the one that is building something, right, and you put all of your attention into it and all of your focus into it, it gets increasingly harder to give that up, right? Because you're like, hey, I spent the last 6 months or the last 8 months or the last year working on this thing, right? And if I give it up now, then it means all of that time is completely wasted, right? And having to face the fact that you have to start over from scratch with potentially something new without those people there, just completely by yourself, can be a little bit like daunting and a little bit scary, right? And what can happen in that time is that you start to sort of give up on or give into things, right? So that the people that you surround yourself with might say like, hey, we want like more, right? We want more shares in the company, or we want a different role, or we want, you know, you to do something different, or whatever, right? Whatever that may look like. You might just start to sort of give in and sort of give up a part of yourself because you're like, hey, you know, I've already spent so much effort and so much time on this. If I push back and the whole thing blows up, then I'm faced in this position where I just have to start over again, right? And learning to sort of be completely okay with that, knowing that even if you spend 6 months or 8 months or a year and a half on something that you're extremely passionate about, if it's not working, that's fine, right? You can give up, you can start new, you can start again, right? And that sort of goes back to the timing of things, right? Because back then, you may have had like a great idea and you may have put in all of this work, but if the timing, right, whether that's like the market timing or just where you are in life or whatever, just isn't working out at the time, then you sort of have to make the decision to sort of give that up and start something new, right? And that's perfectly, like, it's perfectly fine. It's not an easy decision to make. It's very difficult, especially because, you know, if you're the one putting all of that time and all of that effort in. But in the end, it ends up being, you know, a much better decision, right? Because after I made that decision, everything sort of opened up after that, right? There were a lot more opportunities, a lot more possibilities. What before was like a structure shared between 3 different friends was now, you know, I was like the sole owner. Like I had complete ownership of the company and everything, right? And it ended up sort of being like a better idea and a better product anyway, right? But without all of that pain and all of that, the hassle, right? So I think, you know, that is probably like the biggest thing there, that, you know, if you sort of fail to manage the relationships in that way, like it can backfire like pretty, you can explode back in your face, right? But learning to sort of manage that, learning to manage people, learning to manage the relationships and the people that you work with, right? And what is it that actually drives them, right? What are sort of their fears, their insecurities, the things that make them act one way or another? If you can sort of hone into that and then sort of drive the conversations that you have in a way that those like needs and insecurities are met, then overall you can have much better conversations, and it helps to actually establish those business relationships. So yeah, that was a hard lesson, but yeah.
Real quick, I relate to something that he said there, because my first invention, I can give it away now because it failed. It's the Aquarium Smart Feeder. It's a way to feed your fish tank with an app or with the Amazon Echo. And I worked on it for 2.5 years and I never sold a single one. And it took a long time to pull the plug on that, because in that time that I was inventing it, I had a buddy that was a master in robotics and he had access to like the school's 3D printers and everything. So he was making the prototypes and we would post about it and everyone would be like, that's so cool. Like, it was the worst situation because we had so many people saying that it was an awesome idea with everything except for their credit card. And they'd reach out, we'd run surveys and they'd be like, I love it. That's amazing. Like, oh, it lights up different colors. Oh, can you make a red one? And be like, yeah, $80. They're like, okay, I'll let you know. So it didn't solve a problem. So no one would ever buy it. And in short, it's because if you don't feed your fish for 5 days, they're probably fine. They're 35 cents and they don't have a name. So it's not that big of a deal anyways. And you could also buy a $4 little feeder block to throw in the fish tank, and they could eat off that for a week. So when it came time to, we're going on vacation, we'd be like, oh, we could buy this $80 thing that will ship in a week, or we could go to the store and buy this $4 thing and they'll be fine. So it's just like, it never made any sense, like, unless someone really just wanted like just to show it off to their friends. But I was like, we have to charge a minimum of $80 on this thing. We had to spend like $100,000 to get like injection molds made. And it was really difficult for me to let that go, because 1 year into that, we had built an Instagram following to sell this product. And that was what was going really well for us. I had like 20,000 followers in the first year, and I was just posting aquarium content. I was just like reposting viral aquarium videos and just growing a lot of followers. And by the end of it, we had 49,000. And that is where my Instagram podcast came from, was because I had the knowledge from that company. So it led into my next company. However, the basis of my podcast that I was teaching people was because I had this e-commerce business. So to shut that down really made like imposter syndrome kick in, because I was like, now I'm on episode 135 teaching people how to open a business, and the business that I founded this podcast on is now being closed. And I was really held on to it. So that was one reason. And the second reason is I simply didn't know when to, like, what good numbers like I should be seeing. Like I was like, okay, I don't know like how many sales I should have already, or how would I go about like collecting? Should I collect pre-orders to figure it out? Like I wasn't trying to charge people. I just kept running surveys, or even when I would tell friends and family, they'd be like, oh, wow, like I can't believe that doesn't exist. That's amazing. I'm like, yeah, the cat and dog automatic feeders sell tons, so we should, do the same. And that was like, I took that as reason enough. And then it really just came down to like the simple concept of like, what's the problem that it solves? And it doesn't solve one. So it was a lesson that took a very long time to learn, especially because we're like, all right, we keep making new prototypes. And like Peter was saying, like the longer invested you get into it, the more you just feel like you have to make it work. And I came from a sales job before, and Cutco knives are well proven. So like I had this whole mentality of never give up, never give up, never give up. And like, you'll be fine. And when you open your own business, especially with the product that you're inventing, like giving up is a really big part of it a lot of times, because you got to move on as soon as you know. But when you're new, you just don't know like what numbers mean to move on or not. You're kind of just like, yeah, but look at all the followers we got. So obviously it's working, but so yeah, the lack of experience just makes it hard to know when to pull the plug confidently.
That's a great story, man. I'm like, as soon as you said it, I'm like, that's a great idea.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, now it's great because I get to talk about it on the pod. And like, it's like my story that I tell people of like, you could have this invention that usually it's the other way around. The whole world doubted me and it worked. And I'm like, the whole world believed in me and it didn't. So it's like the inverse of the common story. But yeah, I'm like, all right, well, it gave me the podcast, and then now I've started other endeavors, and now my new product, it's been out for 2 months and I've sold over 300 units, and I'm like, oh my God, I finally figured out how to solve a problem. so we're good.
That's a great lesson right there, Derek, in that in business, you're going to make mistakes, but there's no such thing as a mistake. As long as you look at it, analyze it, figure out what you did wrong, and use what you learned to move forward and grow with, then it's not really a mistake. It's the price of knowledge. And knowledge has a price, whether you go to university, whether you try to create a product like Derek did and it fails. We'll try to build something that's an intellectual project, a product like Peter did with you. You spend 1.5 years on it and it doesn't make any money. The knowledge you gain from that, don't ever let that go. So make sure that when you have a failure, number one thing to do when you have a failure is spend some quiet time alone, sit down with a pen and a paper, put the computer, put every distraction you can away, be in a room where there's nothing but you, pen and paper, and write down what you learned. Because when you have the distractions away and you start writing these things down, that's when the lessons will start coming to you, and you'll start to realize the value you got from what you did. And there's always value, there's always lessons to be learned, even in failure. So take those.
Absolutely. Like, school, man. Like, dude, the amount I learned in university was like this much. I went to a D1 college and I learned that I can't do drugs. So that was my lesson from college, right? And I still did drugs, so it didn't even the lessons didn't even work. But I love that. Yeah, like there's a quote from Think and Grow Rich. It's every setback is an opportunity for a greater comeback, and that one really sticks to me because it's like in dating too, because I know we all talk about dating and stuff and have experience with that. Like, yeah, you're going to get rejected a ton, but each time, if you take that time to learn and not make the same mistake, you're going to propel forward. And like, just like with Derek, right? You might 5 years down the line, it might seem hopeless. And then all of a sudden you're selling 300 products and you're like, I'm guessing for you, it almost seems like normal now. You're like, this is what it was supposed to freaking be like, I like this.
And it feels more like I deserve it to happen now, right?
You
To have
your
already
dues.
gone through that failure. I like the expression "don't make the same mistake twice," and I think the other part of that is be okay when you make it the first time. Like I only get hard on myself if I make a mistake that I knew not to do, and then I did it again. Is when I'm like actually mad at myself. But any mistake that I make the first time and I didn't know, then that's why I give myself the pass.
And when we first met, Derek, there was a mistake you were making pretty pretty consistently. And I remember
Uh-huh.
it was like our second session. You're like, I didn't make this mistake, and you were just so happy. It was like I didn't do it. I was
Yeah.
like, let's go, baby, let's go. So for me, with the music thing, I spent 9 years pursuing a career in music. I dropped out of school multiple times. That was going to be my saving grace. And like you said, I just kept making the wrong product I made the right product at the wrong time. And I didn't give up. I didn't heed the lesson and say, okay, it's been 3 years. I haven't made a single dollar. I'm, living in my parents' studio, pun intended, making beats. Maybe it's time to, focus on something else. I kept going for it. However, it was almost, a year ago, over a year ago, year and a half ago, I was working at a shoe store and I was making beats on the side. I just needed money. That was my whole strategy. Just earn money so I can buy equipment and make better music, hire coaches. And I was pretty close to breaking in, but one of the coaches was like, he's like, what do you want, by the way, with your career? And I'm like, oh, I want to make bank and travel the world and DJ. And he's like, yeah, that ain't happening. And he had been signed for years, like with Armin van Buuren. He knew those guys, like Hardwell. He was friends with Hardwell. He made a track with him when Hardwell was just starting his label, which is now Revealed Recordings. And he was telling me like he isn't making money off music. And it was just like, dude, what the fuck? Like this, I was so confident that this was my path. And so I found a guy on the internet who, Bentley, you just came from. We won't get into specifics, but he woke me up to that there's ways to have a different life. And so I got into real estate. And I thought that was the next saving grace. So I passed the exam, I studied my ass off, and right as I got my real estate exam, the market crashed. And so I couldn't I couldn't sell a house. And I remember just during the exam, I had studied so hard. I did the flashcard thing. I had like a stack like this big. And I remember looking at the first question and I said, yeah, I ain't going to pass this. I had no idea what the question was. And I just remember thinking like, yo, what if okay, real estate isn't working out. Like, I'm not going to get my license. Hey, I gave it a shot. But if I made a YouTube video every day for a year, what could possibly happen? And I passed the exam. And so that idea just kind of went, but once the real estate stopped working, I was like, yo, like, remember that idea I had when I was thinking I was going to fail my exam? What if I capitalized on that? And I asked a dating coach I was actually working with at the time, who has over 1 million followers. I was like, hey man, how do you grow a YouTube channel to, make some income? Or he's like, just do 3 videos a week for a year and a half and you'll be fine. I was like, and I was hoping he was going to say something really hard. Like, you got to make like 3 videos a day that are 10 minutes long or more. And, and he's like, nope, 3 videos. So if all that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here with you guys. And it's just like, it's one of those things, like, I'm just like, like I can't even put it into words. We just hit 4K subs today. And when I started that journey, I was at like 400 or something, like right around 420, ironically. And I was like, dude, like, I would just love to get to 1,000. You hit 1,000 and it just keeps growing. And it's just, I know, Derek, you have a channel as well that's doing pretty, like, we're pretty close in
3,500. Yeah, I think you just pulled away. 3,900 now for you.
Bro, you got to start talking about drug addiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just unreal. And coming full circle here, it's because, I listened to the mistakes that I made and I said no more. And the big part is okay. A wise man, there's a saying, a smart man listens to people's successes and learns from people's successes. And a wise man learns from their mistakes. So I just went full send. Okay, just don't do what these guys did. Not talking about you guys. and I should be okay, right? And that really worked. So I guess we're coming up an hour here to kind of wrap it here. Any other tips you would have for people that are getting into business, trying to grow and not make some big mistakes? And then what is the biggest mistake you learned from that wasn't yours?
Peter, you want to start?
Biggest mistake that I learned that wasn't mine. I think it would have to be probably trust but verify. So what will happen a lot of times is that someone can approach you with like a, well, basically with open arms, and they'll say like, hey, if you just do this, like it's a really good thing, like you should do it, right? Just trust me, bro, right? I have your best interest at heart or whatever. And what you'll find is a lot of times people will try to do kind of shady things, right? And you may not realize it, right? Because they basically welcome you with open arms, but then they'll try to sneak something in, right? So one of the things that happened to us is we were partnering with a specific company, right? And in the contract, they like slipped a clause in that was like, hey, all of your IP would belong to us if you sign this, right? And we're like, wait, what, right? And it's not that people are doing this because they're malicious. A lot of time people just do it to see what they can get away with, right? And so when you have those sort of situations, it's always important to just be like, hey, this sounds good, right? Amazing, right? I think that the business relationship will go extremely good. I think we can have a strong partnership here, right? But I'm going to have to go back and actually dig through all of this legal paperwork to see if there's anything in here that actually makes or doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And what can happen a lot of times is like you hear all of these promises, right? If someone said like, hey, if we just partner and if you, listen to me, then I'm going to grow like your YouTube channel, 100% or 200%, right? And you're like, this sounds awesome. And then they're like, yeah, but like 75% of the revenue would belong to them. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I want, really, right? And being able to understand like what it is that you really want, right? And what is it that people are offering, and figuring out if that is what aligns with your goals and your visions. And if it doesn't, be able to just say like, hey, cool, but this isn't going to work.
Be able to say no. Hormozi talks about that a lot. Like once you get going, you're going to get so many offers. There's like, he calls it the girl with the red dress. You're going to start seeing a lot of hot girls with red dresses. It's like, yeah, she seems nice. But, yeah, I like that.
The question is, what's a mistake you learned from someone else?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up with, relating to Sobriety University channel here, because that's really been like my big thing this year. I mean, I've only worked for myself for the last 11 years now, whether it be like commission-based sales or whatever I'm doing here. And when it all comes down to you, you don't really have a manager, you can't get fired. Like you really have to be fully yourself is like the biggest hack in business. Like the more you are fully yourself and know yourself, especially when you're a content creator, that's what you need to dial into. You can't just always be like, oh, what's the trend? Let me just hit the dance that other person did because they got a lot of views. Like you got to be the originator of your own content if you're really going to break through. And I smoked weed like every day, all day for like 13 years. And it would make me paranoid that I was going to hit my goals. So then I'd work all day, but I'd be like pretty unfocused. And it just made me content with, hey, even if I'm sucking right now, even if I can't sell this aquarium smart feeder, like I'm content for some reason. Like I would just be cool with it, right? Like it kind of makes you happy when you don't really deserve to be. But I was like always taking that shortcut and just staying that way. And the mistake that I have seen from someone else is there is a friend of mine that I used to work with, and he's probably mid 40s, and he's a multimillionaire, and he's super successful in like everything he does. But he also smokes weed all day, every day. And I have watched his character just slowly diminish over the years and become very irritable. He can't talk to someone that isn't like exactly who he wants to talk to without just being a total dick. Like I just watch him be just bored of all these situations, just constantly ripping a hash pen that he's got on him. And even though he's got all the success on paper, he's been through relationships. He's a heartbreaker. He gets girls thinking he's going to marry them, then he breaks up with them. And I've watched him do this over and over. And I can just see that there is, internal trauma that is going on with him. And I know the weed is not helping from my point of view, even though I'm sure it's giving him that temporary relief. And I can just see like, okay, if you maintain on the path you're going where you're working all the time and then you're smoking weed the whole time, you might get all the success that he has, but you're going to be a dick. Like you're just going to, like as Andrew Huberman or whatever I would turn into, you know, says it's like addiction is like the slow diminishing of life. What is it? Do you know what?
Sounds
Joel?
right. That sounds right.
Something like that. Like, yeah. So, yeah, you lose sight of the little things, and he just doesn't have any passion for what he's doing anymore. He just has built all these big businesses, and now he's just going through the day to day. But he was so passionate when I first met him 10 years ago. He was like, I'm going to be president of this company. But like he had so much passion in it, and now he just crushes it. But he just seems like he's too cool for school all the time. So that was something that I realized. Like whenever I am down and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I say, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to take my own advice. I need to do everything that I've been telling people to do on the podcast. Like everything that we're talking about right now. Like it's a whole other thing to like, know, like, yeah, the guys make mistakes and, you know, keep fighting. And it's a whole other thing to like be the person making the mistake and then being asked to keep fighting. So it really is. I was like, I just need to be myself. I'm like, okay, who could get me out of this situation right now? Could this friend? Like, no, like only me, not just because like I'm the one who would actually press record on the YouTube videos. I'm like, I'm the one with the skills to do this. Like, I'm the only one who knows how to do like all the things that I need to do. And like, I know how to do it. Like, I just need to focus and I just need to, you know, fully embody who I am. It is really like the biggest hack that I've had to, you know, do this year.
Love it, dude. And I've seen you make some great transformation within a short period of time to become more like yourself. And again, that's what we talk about, like with drugs, like they give you that temporary relief, but the consequences, you become less of who you are. And one of the best parts of being alive is being you, quirks and all. So yeah, I love that, Derek. Mr. Bentley.
Yes, sir. One of the biggest mistakes that I've learned, or two of them I'll go with. The one from myself was don't get too full of yourself. Understand that you're fallible, you're human, you're going to make mistakes. And what that leads into is a mistake I learned from someone else is don't go out and get yourself a yes man, because he's going to tell you everything you're doing is right. You're not going to see the mistakes that you make. So the best thing to do is to find yourself either a coach, a consultant, or a friend who will call you up and tell you, dude, you fucked up. Here's where you went wrong. This is what's going wrong. And you need to pay attention to it, because everybody, myself included, gets to the point where they cannot see their own forest because of the trees right in front of them. And we're all guilty of that. Doesn't matter what you are, who you are, what you do, you're going to do things wrong. So when everyone around you tells you that everything you're doing is right and there's nothing wrong, and that goes on consistently for a period of time, you surrounded yourself with the wrong people. And you need to find somebody who will shake that up and go, nope, you're doing this, this, and this right, very well, but these are the things that you're doing wrong. You need to pay attention to that. And if you don't have that in your life and in your business, you are full steam ahead into the rocks. You best be prepared, because it's going to crash hard.
Clip that. I was serious as fuck. I'm just like, yeah, dude, 100%. Yeah. I mean, for me too. Yeah. Finding a mentor, finding somebody that can tell you what you don't want to hear, and find that person that can do it in the way that works well with your personality too. Like if you're not somebody that can just get screamed at, don't find someone that's just going to scream at you. Find someone that will. So my mentor, he's very good at like kind of teasing me when I'm doing something stupid. It's like, yeah, man, it's not your best idea. I'm just like, okay, tell me more, because I know I'm think that's gonna be mine too, similar to mine too, is like you gotta know when you're messing up. And I think what you just said, like a good way to start, like let's say you can't afford a coach right now, or you know you can't you don't know anybody that would be able to help. Start doing that with take your own inventory, right? Start with yourself. Start being able to call yourself out on your own BS. Like, hey, I said I was gonna eat donuts today and I ate 10 donuts. Like, it's not cool, man. Or I said I was going to work on my business for 2 hours and I played video games instead for 4. It's like, yeah, I can't be doing this. I can't be doing this. And I have those conversations with myself almost daily on things that I'm doing that aren't in alignment with where I want to be. And sometimes it can be a little harsh. So I got to learn how to find that balance, right? Find that middle ground where I'm not just like, you fucking suck today, dude. Like, you didn't drink a half liter of water like you said you would. Like, all right, relax. Like, some things we can let go. My
It's
big
like one bottle of water.
yeah, I think I maybe got a half gallon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if you actually aren't drinking a half liter of water a day, or
Yeah, that's
you should
12
probably
ounces.
be drinking
Yeah.
more. As Bentley takes a sip of water, that's my biggest mistake. The biggest mistake I've learned from others is to enjoy the process and to not become obsessed with work. I go to a program called, I can't say it by name, but search work addiction program and it's going to come up. So it's for work addiction, and it's not the show with the three guys that smoke weed in LA, which is a great show, by the way, but Workaholics, you guys know that show? Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's not that. That's not how you get better with your work. But essentially, like, I went into those programs and I would see people 45, 50, 60, 70 who have just wasted their whole lives either chasing business and not finding success, thinking money was the end all be all, and then not focusing on their relationships. So like we all talked about today, relationships is absolutely I'd say up there in the top 3. Or on the opposite, where they didn't put enough work into it, and now they're, or like Bentley said, they aren't saving their money. They weren't wise with that, and now they're 60, 70 years old and they don't have money and they have to work. And it's just like, dude, like if you guys need a wake up, go to those recovery meetings. And I have a free PDF down below. You can, a gift PDF down below you can download that has a bunch of different meetings, and check them out, because they might scare the shit out of you for change. Because you see these people that, for example, like with weed, there's a weed program, and you see people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s that didn't do what Derek did, and instead they're like his friend. They're just irritable. They have no soul. Their passion is gone, and all they can do is smoke the weed to not explode. And that could be the wake up to be like, well, just don't become like these people. Just do the work and don't become like these people. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned on this is to make sure you enjoy the process. So speaking of, guys, I really enjoyed this convo today. This was awesome. And so
great.
much wisdom. I appreciate all 3 of you guys coming on. It was great to meet you, Peter, and we'll obviously be doing more of these in the future with our community. With the Meta Now community, we have stuff going on all over the place. Bunch of different creators, bunch of people doing content and stuff. So to wrap it up, just go around the horn and let people know where they can find you and know what you're doing in this world. So.
Yep. So. Peter, you can find me on Instagram, Peter Sikula.
Cool.
I'm on Instagram at Social Bamboo with an _ at the end. You can listen to my podcast, Social Media Entrepreneurs.
Nice.
Cool. For myself, I'm on Instagram as well, but mostly I mostly concentrate on business. So probably best to find me on LinkedIn. It's just linkedin.com/BentleyHam. Ham is 2 M's, all one word.
Nice. That was the fastest wrap up. Usually, each person does like a 5
Peter set the tone.
So I'll bring it back. First, speaking of business relationships,
big news
shout
coming
out to
soon.
my husband. Thanks for tuning in, man. He's one of the founders of the community, so we really appreciate him and what he's doing for the group. And again, speaking of, you can join the Men and Now community to connect with like-minded men on their mission, leveling up, like all 4 of us here. And for myself, you can find me on Sobriety University. And for a living, I help coach people through their addiction, especially with marijuana. So if that is something you're dealing with, and maybe you've been trying by yourself, because I know we all did. You all want to just do it by yourself. You don't. You only get help when you need help. And so maybe you're at a point where you haven't been able to do that. Well, then I very much invite you to reach out for me for a consult, and we can get to know you a little bit, find out where you are in your journey and what might be the missing piece to finally letting it go. Because a lot of it is mindset. And once you can, what I've seen with people I've helped, and with Derek as well, like once you see the bigger purpose for your life, like, oh, like I have way more to live for than just packing a bowl every night. Oh yeah, the new Mac OS.
Does it work for me now?
Does that really do that?
Yeah, yeah.
It only works for Joel.
Do you guys got?
Yeah.
You guys got?
Try
Oh,
it, Peter.
you knew to.
Huh.
Come on.
Oh,
whoa.
it's raining on you.
Oh.
That's fucking true. Okay, cool. Apple man. Yeah. So all you Mac, your PC users, yeah, get on the Mac. You get that stuff.
I'm on Mac.
I'm on a Mac.
Are you? Oh, here's why. Okay. What do you guys use for your camera?
Oh, I've got the webcam.
Webcam.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Logitech webcam.
That's why I'm using my iPhone as the camera. So I think it's things like that. Yeah, little pro tip: you can use your iPhone camera. Just mount it behind your computer if you have a Mac, and it's a 4K camera.
Your camera does look the best. Dang it.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
My lighting situation in here isn't that great yet. I just moved in yesterday, so.
Okay, I love Bentley. The whole wall is like crooked.
Hey, I told you I have made a shitload of mistakes.
This is an action, guys. This is
live action. I have made a shitload of mistakes.
not live. We'll do a stream one day where we all have just like wonky ass cameras. That'd be great.
We've got in the place that I'm in a co-working place. We've got a really cool studio. I didn't really have time and didn't know I was going to do this to get in there, but I will. It's got a real cool background. It's very different.
Sweet.
I'd love to tell the story on that one, but I'm not going to do it at the end of the show.
Another day for sure.
Another day.
For sure. So yeah, guys, just wrapping up. Again, you can reach out to me on Sobriety University. There'll be a description below to book a call and find that freedom you need. Your life can be great, guys. You can have an amazing life that is beyond anything you could have imagined at all. I thought I was going to be a dentist. I would have sucked so hard, dude. Would have been a terrible dentist. And so yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in, and for everyone who showed up. Comment down below if you have any questions or comments. You can find this on Derek's channel as well at socialbamboo_. So hit up his channel as well for a ton of awesome business advice, and connect with these guys on Instagram. There we go. If you have any questions about the community as well. And other than that, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Adios.